Okay, so I met Jim in May when I was going around raising money for RTR yearbook. I walked right into his office. He's a communications director at SMSU, straight up the road in Marshall. And under that heading, he does a lot of different things, which is why he was the person I ended up speaking with. When I started thinking about who should we bring in to talk to students about communication, it made sense that I'd invite him, right?
You.
Yeah, it is what he does. So I contacted Jim and was pleasantly surprised that he said, yeah, I'll totally do that. So he's here today. He's going to be talking to you. He'll be spending some time with the speech class and with the English 12 kids today. He's going to tell you a little bit about how he got to be in his position, and I'm assuming he's going to open it up for questions. He was really impressed by your questions. So I will let him take it from here.
All right, thanks Robin for inviting me today. My name is Jim Tate. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director at Southwest Minnesota State. I think I'm in my 19th year there. Just take you through the resume a little bit. I'm originally from a small town in northwest Iowa called Emmitsburg, Iowa. So when I grew up there, it was a town of about 4,000 people, and it's the sister city of Dublin, Ireland. And this is how Irish this town is. It's split by railroad tracks, and when I grew up there, there was a Catholic grade school on the north side, a Catholic grade school on the south side, a Catholic parish on the north side, a Catholic parish on the south side, and a Catholic high school on the south side. So it was a very, very Irish Catholic community. Over time, as the population changes, the demographic changes, those now there's simply one parish and one grade school. But when I grew up, that was kind of a weird deal. I went to college at Huron College in Huron, South Dakota. That college is today a water park, believe it or not. I was all set to, you all know your strengths as students and what you're good at, and English kind of was my thing, and I was an athlete a lifetime ago, and so I thought that it might be fun to be a sports writer. And we had a family friend who ran a newspaper in town, approached him, and he let me do some sports writing when I was a senior in high school. And that kind of gave me a taste of it, so I was all set to go to Iowa State to pursue a journalism degree, and then in our conference in Sheldon, Iowa, was a Lakes Conference foe, and the head football coach there, Glenn Jagodinski, took the head job at Huron College. So he recruited me, and they had something there called the Daily Plainsman Scholarship. The Daily Plainsman is a daily newspaper there in Huron, and what they offer is they'll pay your tuition for 4 years in return for work. And so I made a calculated gamble that 4 years of daily newspaper experience would outweigh a journalism degree. So I majored in English and minored in sociology and gerontology. And so yeah, that was a gamble I took, and it worked out as I got into the entry levels of print journalism, and worked at dailies in California, and Iowa and Minnesota. Moved over, married my high school sweetheart. We lived in Fairmont. I was a sports editor in Fairmont during the 80s, and then the company that owns Fairmont and Marshall, New Ulm, Fort Dodge, Minot, they have about 52 properties. It's called Ogden Newspapers. So they transferred me up to be the managing editor of the Marshall paper. That was during the 90s, and then I moved out to SMSU in 1999, and I've been there ever since. So that's kind of how that happened. I might not have been at the college had not President Doug Sweetland smoked Camel cigarettes. I was a smoker as well. We hit it off pretty well. He used to come down to the loading dock, and we'd smoke cigarettes, drink coffee, and talk about things. And,
Networking 101.
yeah, exactly. We hit it off. This position opened up, and he suggested that I apply, and there you go. That's cigarette networking. I wouldn't recommend it. As far as what my office does, the Office of Communications and Marketing, we are the internal and external voice at the college. We have a huge umbrella. When I started, we had no social media presence. I was hired pretty much to do press releases and other duties as assigned, and so it's expanded so much. We take roughly 90% of the photos at the university. I have a group of about eight students who we try and photograph as many events as we can, and then put it on our Facebook page, SMSU Today. Our office is in charge also of all of our social media. We do press releases, we put out a magazine, I have a weekly radio show on Tuesdays, I write a column for the newspaper. Other areas of campus send us written whatever documents they're working on and ask us to go through them, proof them, pretty them up, things like that. We also deal with the media. We had media inquiries. Hey, do you have an expert on campus who can speak intelligently, about immigration, for instance? And so I will kind of be the point person on that, arrange the interviews, try and make their life a little bit easier. So, as far as I do have, it's a one-man office. I do have a graduate assistant. Her name is Rita Fonder. Graduate assistants at the university do a lot of things, and in return, they get an $8,000 stipend over the academic year. If you work the entire year, it's $12,000. And then in return, their graduate courses, their master's courses are paid for, so they get that tuition free. So that's how that works. So it cycles every 2 years. I think I'm in my 4th graduate assistant. So that's how our office works. In terms of Robin was talking a little bit about, we talked a little bit before class, just about what she's been talking to you about, just in terms of communication and how that is important to whatever field that you go into. That is kind of what I do. I mean, that's what I do. And what we have found what we've found at the university is that, and there's lots of theories about this, are you guys all social media wizards, I'm assuming? Okay. Okay.
Although they don't follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, what, is Twitter your big,
Instagram.
Snapchat.
okay, okay. Do you think that that's affected your ability to communicate at all,
Oh, yeah.
Probably. Positively or negatively?
I'd say both.
Would you? How so? Just give
Positive,
me an example of both.
positive, we want to talk to people. Negative, we don't want like to talk person to person,
Mhm.
so.
Perfect,
That's
perfect
good.
example. When I interview, educators, and I do that a lot, just as part of my duties. That's one question I always ask is how has social media changed students? And that's a very common thread as far as what I hear. Is just that the person-to-person communication is decreased, and the ability to do academic writing or writing of substance has decreased. Is that fair? Yeah. Well, you guys are easy. You think that though, huh? Why do you say that? Because you don't write that like you used to?
We're texting more often than we're
Yep.
writing on actual paper, or we're taping more often than we're writing on
Yeah.
actual paper, so.
Well, we've had probably more success on the Facebook platform simply because of the audience that we're trying to reach, and we do just a lot of photography on there, and as you know, everybody likes to see their photo. So we get, that's probably our most successful platform. I would say athletics, their best platform is Twitter, obviously. They get a lot of followers, and but for my side, news side, non-sports side, it's probably Facebook. We don't do a lot of Instagram, although we probably should do more. Yeah. As far as communication in general, I really enjoy, there's kind of two schools of thought from the print journalism side of when you approach an interview. When you, if I am going to interview somebody, who are they, where do they work, give me some background on them. We get a lot of requests from our alumni office, okay, and I'll get a name, John Doe, this is where he works, class of 1978, and that's about it. So I do a lot of research on this person, just a little bit about the company itself, and anything I can find out personally about them, their children, the number of children, things like that. Everybody likes to talk about their family and their kids. But I like to go into an interview, and I have a very conversational style. I like to, it's an old journalism adage that a good interview, you want to make that person your best friend in 10 minutes. And you want to put them at ease immediately. So that's my style. I have sat in some interviews, for instance, with our president, just as an observer, when they've been interviewed by other journalists, and those journalists will literally have, okay, here's my first question, here's my second question, literally reading off this paper. no, very rigid interviews, and if your subject says something that kind of floors you, you don't have the flexibility to go down an unexpected road if you're a scripted interviewer.
And that's the SMSU president, right?
Pardon me?
The SMSU college president.
Correct, yes, Connie Gores. There's two schools of thought on that. Obviously you have to have your questions in mind, but I believe that you kind of have to have the flexibility to go down backwaters once this interview starts and they open up to you a little bit. As far as other just general aspects of communication, I believe that being able to listen is a real gift, and it's overlooked quite a bit. You guys all have your circles that you run in, and your group of people. I've always believed that a liberal arts education really does a lot to make a well-rounded student who can understand a number of areas of academia, of life. And now you guys, I remember when I was high school, early on, I kind of hung with the jocks, that was my group. And looking back, I wish I would have expanded my circle a little bit to include all the groups, and you're gonna get it to a little bit lesser degree in college. Now, you guys are juniors, right?
Yeah.
Have you started your college search?
Starting
Just starting, you're going to the fairs, or have you done some on-campus stuff yet? On-campus visits? Okay. Do you know what you want to do academically? You do?
wide.
That's pretty rare, to know going into college what you want, and you're fortunate. There's all kinds of statistics and studies about the number of times a student will change their major, and oftentimes it's because of a club that they happen to join. It's because of a freshman level class that they had to take that piqued an interest in them. But if you are fortunate enough to know at this early age what you want to do, good for you. That's actually quite unusual. But I'm sorry, listening, yeah. I talk to a lot of people, I come in contact with a lot of people all day, and I'm always looking for a story. I'm always looking for a way to promote the university, to put its best foot forward. So I enjoy talking to professors and just listening to what they have to say about some of their better students, some of the research that these students are doing, some of the internships that these students are doing. Those are stories that we can put forward to shed a positive light on the university and the professor and these students. So I just like to listen, and I think sometimes that's a lost art. Like I said, we do a lot of photography. When I first started, we had a little point-and-shoot camera that big. This was back in the old film days, and this is pre-social media and pre-all that. And I remember we took it out to the SMSU marching band performed at the inauguration of George, the first Bush presidency, and it was a cold, rainy, miserable day, and this little camera got destroyed. And this was right when digital was starting to come in, and we purchased a Nikon. It was about that big, and it was just the funkiest looking thing. It had it was two pieces. You could rotate the lens portion over here. The megabytes or the ISO only went up to 800, I think, and it was very archaic. But it was our first attempt at digital photography. Over the last 6 years, we have been digitizing our archives of photography. We had an older professor named Henry Killingstad, and that's what he did. He photographed the university in its early years. And he had 35 millimeter film and medium format film. And all of those things, all of those negatives were kept in two big file cabinets at the Southwest History Center. So when we knew that our 50th anniversary was approaching and we knew we'd probably be doing a book, we started digitizing all these negatives, and oh my goodness, what a tedious, boring job that was. But we got it done, we got through it. Excuse me. The problem with Henry's photos is they came in, they were in these these 35 millimeter negative sleeves. I know I'm talking Greek to you guys.
It's okay, I get it. I'm enjoying this.
And on the end of these boxes that they were held in, there was some writing there, and you knew that there was something somewhere that told you what these photos were when they were taken, things like that. Okay? Well, Henry died, and his family never did find the Rosetta Stone. So what we had was, as we're with the knowledge that we're going to be doing this book and we're going to need these photos, we didn't know who they were, didn't know what year they were, the whole thing. So we do an album on our Thursday, Throwback Thursday, on our Facebook. So a couple years ago we picked photos. We thought, well, there's a shot that this might show up in the book. So let's increase the size of our Throwback Thursday albums, put it on our website, put it on the alumni website, and see if we can get some help in identifying. That's how we basically identified. The 50th anniversary book just arrived yesterday on campus, and it was a lot of elements went into that, but our most difficult element wasn't the writing, wasn't the solicitation of contributions, it was in the identification of the individuals who were in that, because we had no idea. So it was really a community effort, our alumni and some of our old-timers, veteran professors, and early students who really helped us do that. So I've really been rambling here.
Yeah,
You guys got questions?
so he's talked about being involved in website, radio, print newspaper, social media, interviews. You've got a lot of things you can ask questions about. And he knows that juniors are creating their own websites right now, so you can ask
Yeah,
them
that's
about that
awesome
kind of
that
thing.
you guys are doing that. How far along is that process?
In the starting stages.
They're gathering things together so that when I give them the editing availability,
Mhm.
they can just start putting stuff on so that it's not so big of a headache. But they've planned out what it'll look like
That's great.
and have been gathering. They're in the process of splicing together videos
Oh,
right now.
oh. video's the hot thing now.
Yeah, we've talked about how news sources and information sources have changed from text-based into video and photography-based much more. And you talked with them about Instagram, and we talked about that influence and how their generation is much more photo-based, visual.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yes,
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, what sports did you play in high school?
I played football, basketball, track, and baseball.
Okay. And then what do you consider the most valuable thing you learned in high school?
I touched on it earlier. Opening yourselves at the age that you're at, and it's a mistake that I made in high school. I just think that you should, and this was what I learned probably post-high school that I wish I would have known in high school, was to just be more inclusive in who I hung out with, and get to know individuals in other groups. I tended to hang out with the athletes, and nothing wrong with that, but wish I would have broadened my horizon a little bit more. Yes, sir.
In high school and college, what classes did you take that you found interesting?
Well, anything English related, for some reason, here in college had a residence hall, a dorm on the north end of campus that was empty, and they, through a collaborative agreement with the city, they created a senior center there. We had a young professor who started a gerontology program there, and I took a class from her early on, and it really interested me. Just the whole gerontology. I love nothing more than to talk to and interview seniors. At the university we have, it used to be called senior college, now it's called Gold College. I'm a member of the Marshall Senior Center Commission. But my interest in gerontology and the study of involvement of the seniors was something that was a pleasant surprise for me. Obviously the English classes, because that was my thing. I hated math. Can't do it at all. So. But yeah, that's kind of, yes ma'am.
Was there a class you wish you would have taken that would have helped you in your?
I wish I would have taken a little bit more science. Math was impossible for me, just simply impossible. But science, I wish I would have taken a little bit more, just because the new discoveries and the advances in technology, medicine that we are seeing today are all tied back to that study. Yes, sir.
In your high school, you said you got a glimpse of journalism. After that little glimpse, did you know that that's what you wanted to, that field is what you wanted to go into?
Yes, yes. Like I said, you know, you can tell what you're good at, and I was pretty good in English, and so I approached Ron Seaman and asked him if I could do a couple of, you know, write some sports for him. He gave me the opportunity, and I was gonna pursue a journalism degree. So I knew that was the road I wanted to go down, I wish somebody maybe had talked to me a little bit about the monetary compensation associated with print journalism. Nobody did.
Journalists don't get paid very well,
Journalists
guys.
don't get paid. As far as journalists go, the only people who get paid less than a print journalist is a radio journalist in these smaller markets. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there travel involved with what you do?
A little bit, yeah. There's events, SMSU is part of a large system of 30 colleges, tech schools, and universities. It's called Minnesota State. It used to be called MinSCU. Okay, anybody ever hear of MinSCU? Okay, this is a perfect example of overthinking something, and I'm gonna say stuff here I shouldn't. But
You want me to turn off the camera?
no, that's
Okay.
fine. MinSCU was an acronym for the Minnesota State Colleges and Universities System. MinSCU. Everybody knew it. That's what it was. Everybody understood it. Okay. Well, in their infinite wisdom, they decided to change. They thought that there were too many negative connotations associated with MinSCU. So they changed it to Minnesota State, okay? Well, that raises a lot of confusion, because you've got two colleges within the MinSCU Minnesota State system that are called Minnesota State. You have Minnesota State Moorhead, you have Minnesota State Mankato. So they just made a mistake, and but golly, it's hard to tell them that. But now there's just this whole area of confusion about whether you're talking about Minnesota State, the system, or the college. And as far as branding and marketing, they did a wonderful job because it was called MinSCU. And if you talk to educators yourself, you're probably aware of this, that in talking to individuals associated with education, it's still called MinSCU, even though by golly, they don't like that.
Well, it's how we differentiate between the two, because that's the problem. It wasn't a very well thought out choice of nouns.
Yeah, I remember they had their group come, they were coming to all the institutions, and we were the last on the list, and they came in, and it was pretty clear from the beginning, you know, they were supposed to be taking input, and it was pretty clear that the decision had been made, and but you know, Minnesota State Mankato and Minnesota State Moorhead used to be called something else. They were called Mankato State University and Moorhead State University. About 15 years ago, what was then MinSCU came down with a strong suggestion that all of the 7 four-year institutions within MinSCU rename their colleges. Minnesota State Mankato did, as did Moorhead. The others said, the heck with you, we're not doing that. It takes a lot of money to change the name of your school. And SMSU has had 3 names. It started out as Southwest Minnesota State College. It went to Southwest State University, and David Danaher, when he became president, he changed it to Southwest Minnesota State University. It tells you where we are geographically, obviously, but like Metro State, you guys know where Metro State is? okay? It's a city school, their demographics are totally different than any other, four-year college in Minnesota. Their average age of their students is like 32 years old. It's a community college. They have no residence halls. They have no athletics. It's a unique beast, you know. But you know, you go Minnesota, or excuse me, Bemidji State, Winona State. I mean, those specifically tell you where these are located. Southwest is the only one that is located in an area. The Southwest. The origins of Southwest go back to 1956 at a coffee meeting. You guys know where Bella Cucina is in Marshall? That was called the New Atlantic Hotel. And in the fall of 1956, a coffee group started talking about a survey that had been conducted by the Marshall High School superintendent of the percentage of students in the area who went on to college. And Southwest Minnesota, compared to other parts of the state, was relatively low. That led to discussion about, well, why don't we get a college in Southwest Minnesota? That led to Southwest Minnesota State being selected as a site of our immediate service areas, 19 counties in Southwest Minnesota. And when it came down to the selection, it was between Marshall and Redwood Falls were the two finalists. And there's a Dick Jorgensen wrote a book about kind of the backwater politics that went into that. They had a site selection committee that would go to each of the communities that were vying for the college. And the best example is, they visited Redwood Falls to the east of us, 36 miles, and they did a false storefronts for empty stores. You know, they made it look like there was commerce going on there, and I mean, it was just a deal. And there's two things that people think tilted Marshall in favor of the site selection committee. One, the Chamber of Commerce always held a fall pheasant hunt for all the legislators that wanted to attend. And also number two, the editor of the Redwood Falls paper during this time wrote a scathing editorial against Hubert Humphrey, who was at the time the mayor of Minneapolis. And that apparently didn't sit very well with the site selection committee as well. So.
And Minnesota has a history of some pretty interesting little debates that way, because we have the one with Southwest there. We have how the capital was selected, you know, those. Yeah. But you mentioned something a couple times now, the coffee club and the networking with smoke breaks, and I think that's something that we don't always hear about. Oftentimes we promote that business meetings are this big formal thing, but a lot of decisions get made by a group of people who just get together and talk very informally, and that's where their ideas come from. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Very much so.
The idea of small talk?
If for instance you are a a city council member, you have to be careful about if you get together with another city council, I can't remember the number, it's a percentage. Is it 3 or 33% of the council get together?
More likely, yeah. School board members have the same issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
school board members have the same issue. It's difficult to get together and just sit down and have a cup of coffee because, people are gonna see you, they're gonna think that you're doing business, and if you do have X percentage, then technically that's a meeting. You know, there's some real, issues there, and I apologize for not being able to speak more intelligently about what that percentage is. However, just be aware that it's true. Just as far as, I think that would maybe fall under just the category of networking. And if there's one thing you guys should be aware of is that is gonna play a far greater role in your future success and the doors that are open to you than you would ever imagine. I have clubs and organizations, meetings, regional and statewide, of clubs and groups that you're associated with. When you get to college, you'll have all sorts of opportunities to join a group that shares a common interest with you. You'll have an opportunity for leadership positions there. And these groups and clubs and organizations and conferences and seminars that you attend as part of that is an opportunity for you to network and for people to get to know you. And when it comes time to look for jobs and look for advancement, those are the people that you're gonna be contacting, and and when something comes up, they're gonna remember you. Oh yeah, I talked to her, she's interested in looking for a new gig, you know, so.
And it's not just whether or not you're meeting with that group of people, it's whether you're important enough in either a positive or a negative way to be discussed by that group of people, because they might be looking for a certain type of individual to fill a need. That's how I got a couple of my jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they came to me and said, I heard about you from such and such, would you be willing to apply for this position and consider it?
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes left.
Just going back to that, I got, my middle daughter got her, she's markets / sells human resources services to small businesses up in the cities. She's gotten 2 jobs now because of her networking ability. My English daughter, I got 2 daughters who teach English. The one at Dassel Cokato did her student teaching in Cold Spring, and her mentor at Cold Spring was a former teacher at Dassel Cokato. When it came time for her to look for a job, she said she liked her. She called the superintendent in Dassel Cokato. She interviewed and got the position. Networking, do not underestimate networking, because it will serve you well over the years.
Final question.
Yes, sir.
What do you look forward to every day in your job?
I look forward to not knowing what I'm gonna be doing. There's certain things that I do, certain social media responsibilities that I have. We have these things called SMSU Today. It's our internal, it'd be like our internal newsletter that we have to publish those every day. But the best part of my job is I get a lot of 11th hour stuff. Hey, there's something neat going on over at the Student Center. This magician is in town, go get a shot, and things like that. Or we got an alumni passing through town, can you any room and do a feature? I just like the spontaneity of it, and I think that kind of goes back to my journalism days. Just, I'm kind of a deadline guy, and I like the I like the juice of doing something on the spur of the moment.
Any closing thoughts for this group of students?
Well, it's a great group. I was impressed that that you're doing the webpage, and that so many of you know what you want to pursue academically in college. That's pretty rare. It really is. Who kind of knows what they're doing? What's your academic area?
I want to be a teacher.
Oh, you do? All right, you're not gonna get rich. Keep going.
Elementary education.
Elementary ed?
Spanish.
Okay, now, have you
That's us too.
looked at Southwest?
Not yet.
That's their strongest program. One of their two strongest programs, education. They get you in the classroom first year, right away. I have to make this pitch. What else are you guys studying?
Robotic engineering,
Robotic engineering, where are you looking at?
kind of SDSU or Lake Area Tech.
Lake Area Tech, okay. Keep going.
I kinda wanna go into sociology or psychology.
Excellent, excellent. Social sciences, yeah. Yes, sir.
Animal science,
Animal science, where are you looking at?
SDSU.
SDSU, good program over there. Yeah, you get what,
Engineering or business of some sort.
business of some sort? Okay.
Oh, orthopedic surgeon.
Orthopedic surgeon. Good for you. You must be a smart guy.
Can we give Jim a round of applause?
Thanks a lot.